Once again, HBO is being gracious enough to remind us that the winter line is coming. Let's get started. Ba-da-ba-ba-da-ba-ba. Hello, my friends. Welcome to Thumb Together. My name is Andrew Fantasia, and today we're going to be talking about Westworld Season 3, Episode 2, The Winter Line Together. As usual, if you enjoyed this video, please feel free to give it a thumbs up and give some love to that subscribe button as well. Otherwise, I will be reprogrammed and sent to a World War II era fortification in Italy, where I will be branded as a traitor by the SS and shot. Yeah, that's far-fetched, but it can probably happen to me. Stranger things have happened. Look at the world we live in today. So just as the premiere focused almost exclusively on Dolores and Caleb with little snippets of Bernard, this one focused almost exclusively on Maeve with some more snippets of Bernard. Yeah, we didn't get any Dolores or any Caleb or anything going on in the real world for that matter in the winter line. But that's okay. I'm excited. I'm always excited to see the parks. And oh boy, do we ever see the parks. Emphasis on plural, parks. But we'll get there when we get there. So Maeve wakes up having been repurposed for Warworld, and now she's this lady named Isabella running through Warworld doing these stories that Sizemore wrote for her. But the problem is, when Hector shows up, he doesn't remember who she is. He still thinks she's Isabella from this storyline, and she realizes that the love of her life doesn't remember her. He has fallen once again into the hands of the Delos programmers. But she's too powerful for that, which is good. But for the first 15 minutes or so, we spend a lot of time just getting to know Warworld and seeing what it looks like. It looks pretty nifty, I'm not going to lie. Last week, I think I incorrectly said that it was Nazi-occupied France. That was wrong. I'm a Dumbo. It's actually Nazi-occupied Italy. But you get the beautiful villas, you get the beautiful Italian countryside, you get this gorgeous old convertible that Rodrigo Santoro hauls Maeve into before they try to make a break for the plane. I want that car, man. It's like Cruella de Vil's car, but less evil. But once a heartbroken Maeve realizes that Hector doesn't remember her and shoots herself, then we get something interesting happening because she wakes up in the lab areas of the parks where people are working on her. There's Felix, there's Sylvester, but they don't recognize who she is. Something is off here. What's going on? Things get even more off when Lee shows up and she's like, I thought you were dead. And he's like, nope. Because guess what? We all thought he was dead. That boy got filled with bullets. But now he's just walking around with a cane. Something is definitely not right here. Something doesn't smell right. And Lee starts taking her through this little gamut of like, oh, yes, I'm going to help you because I'm good now and I love you very much. And she's like, wait, you never loved me. What is happening here? That's when the curtain gets pulled back and we realize that this is all fake and Maeve is in a simulation. Now, this is where Westworld can get a little scary for me. And I don't mean the context of the show, like, ooh, that was frightening. I mean scary for me as in, uh-oh, be careful, people who write Westworld. Maybe this is just me. If you agree, though, please let me know. Like, if we get to the final episode of Westworld, whether it's, season 5, whatever, if we get to the very end and they pull the whole, everything has been a simulation the whole time, ooh, I'll be a little bummed out by that. If we find out that reality was never in play, or at least reality as we know it was never in play, that would bum me out. That, to me, is like the equivalent of, finding out that Saint Elsewhere was inside a snow globe. Can't we just find a nice middle ground? Why does it all have to be a dream or a construct? So when we get to this point where Maeve is like, ooh, I'm in virtual Westworld, I'm not actually here, this is all happening somewhere else, I got a little bit afraid. I was like, oh God, please don't let this go that direction. I have faith in the show, and I think they're going to do better than that. I think they're going to be a little less lazy than that, but I'm still apprehensive. Meanwhile, Bernard was sailing through the South China Sea, and we finally got to see the Westworld island, like where it is and what it looks like, and he got to the island really easily. We noticed there's like some kind of perimeter fence there with a sign on it, so clearly there's a boundary, but we don't really see how he gets through, if there's any kind of security to get through. Probably not. He does it very easily. One shot, he's on the fisherman's boat. The next shot, he's in the cemetery outside the church in Westworld. So Bernard found a way. Now, because this show is the show, you might think, that was a little too easy, wasn't it? What's going on here, showrunners? What are you doing now? It was way too simple for Bernard to get into the park. So that's my big question at least my first big question of the winter line is, why was it so easy for Bernard, a wanted fugitive, to get into the Westworld park? Then he makes his way down to the old offices where he stumbles upon a theory that everybody has had since the end of season 2, because yeah, it turns out Ashley Stubbs is a host too. Now, I didn't think that after watching season 2, but apparently a lot of people did. A lot of people took what he said as indication of him basically telling Tessa Thompson, I'm a robot too, don't tell anybody. I didn't think that. I thought he was just a really cool human who was like, I get that you're Dolores, go ahead. But no, he is a full-on robot who was built by Ford, or was it Arnold? I can't keep track now. But regardless, he was built by one of them to protect Bernard and to protect the park. I gotta admit, I'm a little bummed out that Stubbs turned out to be a host. Only because it's a selfish reason. It's because I think, as far as I can tell, he was the most morally upstanding human character that we had on the show. As far as the humans on Westworld go, they're not the greatest people. They are some messed up folks. I think we could always look up to Ashley Stubbs as sort of the gold standard for humanity, at least where Westworld is concerned. Stubbs was just an all-around good guy. You can tell he just wanted to do what was right. He didn't mistreat the hosts at all. He was just a nice person trying to do his job. So the fact that the nicest human we ever got is not a human at all, that's a bummer. We suck. Humans suck. As Bernard and Stubbs are winding their way through the park, Bernard makes a comment saying, ooh, look where we are. We're in Park 4. And all of a sudden, we get to see a new park. At least behind the scenes, we get to see Park 4. And it is, as a lot of people speculated it is, a medieval park. We saw some Viking-looking dudes. We saw some knights with shields. We saw a king and a queen and a guy playing a lute. Boy, did he ever play the hell out of that lute. And of course, we saw the cameo from Game of Thrones showrunners David Benioff and D.B. Weiss as Delos scientists working on a host dragon that looks suspiciously like Drogon, man. Now, a lot of people find this stupid because the Westworld parks are normally based in real points in history. You know, the Raj is based on the British Raj in India. Westworld is the Wild West. It's straightforward. So to have a park that's based around fantasy, pure fantasy with dragons and such, I can understand how that would irk some people, but to be honest, I thought this was really fun. And I think that it was smart of the show not to dive into the park itself, not to actually take us into Park 4 and see a bunch of knights and dragons running around. Because guess what? We just had 8 seasons of another show doing exactly that. So the idea that we know Park 4 exists and it probably looks a lot like Game of Thrones, but we just see it behind the scenes, I think that's the smartest thing they could have done. And Westworld's all about layers, baby. This cameo was Easter eggs within Easter eggs, because Benioff and Weiss were talking about getting parts for the robot from, I think, Bulgaria, which is where a majority of Game of Thrones production took place. Easter eggs inside Easter eggs. It's like being back in the maze. Now, with the help of Lee Sizemore, or at least a virtual reality version of Lee Sizemore, Maeve finds out where she is. She is actually just her Pearl floating in this incubation tank plugged into a server somewhere in the world that is filling her into this virtual reality war world. So using her crazy good god powers, where she gets that tablet and just basically programs the droids inside of that tank area in the real world. And we get to see another real world robot. And I love these things, man. I love the designs on them. They're so cool. They don't look too sleek and futuristic, even though they are, even though the modernity of real world and Westworld is very sleek and futuristic. They have this sort of line that they straddle where they're quasi-sleek and quasi-mechanically balanced, like a Star Wars droid. And this whole action sequence of this droid, basically under Maeve's control, carrying her like a football and running through this sea of security guards, pushing past them, running for that field goal, and then unfortunately getting shot right before it could escape. Then we end with Maeve waking up in a strange house in a hell of a nice dress and wandering this house, wondering what the heck is going on. Now, this house is composed primarily of wood. It's just wood everywhere. Very nice, not, like log cabin, rustic looking wood, but sleek, warm, rich looking wood. Which makes sense because the man she meets here gives off the impression that he's got a lot of dough. Now, I've noticed that when we have stories that take place in very tech-heavy future worlds like this or like Blade Runner, when you see a character who lives in a domicile that is composed primarily of wood, that's a red flag. And you should be careful of that character. Look at Jared Leto's character in the Blade Runner sequel. That guy had that building that was all wood and retro looking, but there was just something off about that wood, man. It was weird. It weirded you out because everybody else was doing robots and flying cars and shit, and then all of a sudden somebody comes around and they're like, yeah, I live in a wooden house. Red flag. This guy, another red flag. We finally get to meet Vincent Cassel, who I think is going to be our new villain, and his name is Serac. And we don't know much about him yet, but we know apparently he controls the AI sphere that Dolores wants, and he wants to kill Dolores probably before she gets her hands on that sphere. How does he plan on killing Dolores? Well, he sends Maeve to go after her. He says, I want you to find Dolores in the real world and kill her for me, please. Pretty please. Here's some pastries, by the way. He had a nice little spread of pastries. Did you see those? Now, Serac's got a lot of control over Maeve. He's got a button that can freeze her. So this guy is clearly bad news. I don't think we're meant to believe he's anything other than a villain. But I have another question regarding the scene, is that how can we be so sure this house and this man aren't another virtual reality simulation? And as it stands right now, I'm starting to think that they are, just for the simple fact that if this man was a real flesh and blood human being who lived in the real world, couldn't he use his clearly vast resources to kill Dolores in some other way? I feel like this whole elaborate scheme of getting a Westworld host to do the dirty deed for him is too complex. I'm going to drop my first season 3 theory here, and I think that Serac is the virtual avatar of that giant sphere. The sphere has a name, and it's a weird name. It's like Maya Bomb or something. I don't know. I can't remember the name offhand. I'm sorry. But I think that that big sphere has a virtual reality world inside itself. That is what Maeve is plugged into right now. And she is essentially speaking to the sphere's master control program, who just happens to look like Vincent Cassel. I think he's giving this fake name of Serac just to make her think he's a real flesh and blood human being, so that she would trust him a little more than a creepy AI whose powers and rules we don't know about yet. That's my theory. I don't think this dude is real. I think he's an avatar, and I think that big bad sphere is up to no good. But what do you think? Chime in the comments below and let me know what you thought of the winter line. Ooh, this is so far shaping up to be a really cool, very fast-paced season. Very different from season 2. I loved season 2, but boy, that was a mind workout, and it was very, very slow. This is looking much more like an adventure story, and I can't wait to see what happens next. Are Maeve and Dolores two titans who are inevitably going to clash at some point? Only time will tell. 6 episodes left. That has been Westworld Season 3, Episode 2, The Winter Line. I have been Andrew Fantasia. You have been great, and I'll see you here next time. Until then, adios.